Yo, what up gamers? My name is Russ. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to play Havoc Demon Hunter in Lower Karazhan. Now I'm going to be doing that by taking you through my own gameplay, commentating over the top of it, taking you through pack by pack and letting you in on my decision making process, what went well, what didn't go so well, and why I did the things I did, as well as mention, a couple of things that my team as a whole did good and bad, where we could have improved and things like that. I'm hoping by the end of this video that you'll be going away having learned a thing or two so that you can be that guy making plays in your next key. Now, this one is quite a long dungeon. I believe it's a 42-minute timer. I will be speeding up and slowing down. Well, mostly speeding up bits of the video, which I think where we had a couple wipes in this one and things like that. So grab yourself a drink and yeah, strap in and I'll talk you through. Let's begin at the key. Now, as the timer ticks down, I'm going to quickly put my talents and my build on screen, my gear and my soul binds, things like that. So you can just pause the video, take a quick look at those. But I will say I am playing the Gambler build with Dark Glare. I'm using Dark Glare Legendary. I'm playing Trail of Ruin instead of the Glaive Tempest. But I do have a cheeky video coming out in a few days where I did actually play Glaive Tempest in a higher key than this. So stay tuned for that one. Now you can skip this ghost mob without invis, but we all are engineers anyway, so we decided to just use our engineering belt to run past. If you do hug the wall on the left, it's a bit risky, so you could invis pot or you could shroud or something like that, and you can get past that ghost. We just invis potted. We are saving the shroud for downstairs. That's just part of our strat. I'm playing with these guys. These are my guildies, so we're kind of like a pre-made at this point. We do play quite a few keys together. They play a lot more keys than me, but I do get invited sometimes to play with them. So first pack is nothing too crazy. Our rogue is going to be gouging the philanthropist. He can gouge, I believe, every single cast on the pennies from heaven, which is just going to put those swirlies on the ground. As a demon hunter, you can actually stun those as well, so you can use your fel eruption single target stun on the pennies from heaven. If he misses a gouge or whatever, he can also kidney, and you can also use the AoE stun. I usually try to focus on the infiltrators because they do actually, in these higher keys, they do heal a lot of health back from the vampiric claws. If your tank is using mitigation on those, they won't heal as much. And we've also got a hunter with a pet that's applying a kind of like a mortal strike kind of effect where it can't heal too much. And now we're going for the shroud over here for the double pull, and our druid is going down to activate the RP. As soon as you pull this, if no one in your group, if you're pugging this, you haven't pre-decided who's going to activate the RP, especially this week with the two Wicked Witches, whichever kind of boss this one is at the time of recording. This is like the two Wicked Witches. You'll see them in a second. But this one is a very, very, very long RP. I think it's the longest of the RPs. It's like over a minute at least. So I shouldn't have used my meta here. I probably should have just dumped on the first pack, to be honest. So I had it up for the start of the boss. Because as you'll see in a second, it didn't really save us any time. Like me doing damage on this pool doesn't save us any time because we have to wait for the RP anyway. Now we've had it in the past where our rogue has actually gone and activated the RP before we shrouded, like while we're doing the first pack, and that has meant that it was less downtime, so we could probably optimize the route a little bit there. But yeah, we're just going to now wait out the rest of the RP. So I kind of wasted my meta here. So this boss isn't too tricky. The more that we've done this, we've refined our tactic a little bit. Generally, you want to be spreading out so you're not stacking on top of each other, because if you stack up, you can actually spawn two of the purple pools on top of each other. And firstly, that's going to make it hard to use them to go into the sky, which you need to do to dodge a mechanic in a little while. And secondly, when you walk into them, you're actually going to get double hit as well when you go into the sky, and it does quite a decent amount of damage going up. So you might actually kill yourself just walking into the pools if you stack them up. So try and spread them out. We're using world markers as well to mark our own pools. So as you see, our druid is the orange marker there. He's marked an orange world marker where he's going to go. So he's like claimed his pool there. And basically, as you see there, we're jumping into the sky whenever one of the bosses teleports into the middle of the room. I have a nice little week for that, part of a week aura package, which I'm actually working on to release to you guys for season 4 dungeons. So that will be coming in a video probably next week or so. But yes, what we're doing is just rotating interrupts on one of the bosses. We're letting one of the bosses free cast, and we're attacking the human one, and we're just rotating interrupts on Galindre. So we're just having a nice little simple interrupt order. We're obviously on comms calling it out, but as you can see next to my party frames on the left, we're kind of just going by that order. So whoever's at the top of that list is the next interrupt. So that's all that we're really going by. I think they were doing a 3-man interrupt and I was a backup. And yeah, as you see, every time Galindra jumps to the middle of the room, we just go and find a pool and you step in it. You can even pop a personal like a blur as you go in, and you're just going to be, you can go in quite early, you stay in the sky. It works the same as that boss in Ardenweald in the other side. So you're just going to be going in kind of like when it did the, you know, the thing where it just like shocked everyone on the ground, so you got to take a pool to go into the sky while it does the big bomb. It works exactly the same as that, except there's a couple adds and an interrupt rotation as well. So it's kind of like a bit harder than the DOS boss, but you don't have to deal with the passing the electrocution energy thing around that you did in there. So not too bad, just interrupt rotation and go into the sky every now and then. The adds you can really just cleave down, to be honest. If you've got a couple stuns, like I use my AoE stun on them sometimes, I use my single target stun on them a couple times as well, just to stop them casting, because they're just gonna like throw bananas onto the tank, I believe. So it doesn't do too much, but this is not a tyrannical key. So yeah, this one went down pretty simple. And now what we're gonna do is actually suicide so that we can teleport back to the start of the dungeon. All of this trash behind the stage is terrible, really, really terrible to deal with. So we're just gonna take these poetry stamps and teleport back. If you do clear all that stuff, which I very highly advise against, especially on Fortified, you're gonna be wanting to interrupt those poetry stamps or move out of them. I believe Zolgamux is also behind there, so in higher keys that one takes a lot of time to get through all that HP as well. So really don't advise doing that. And then when you go down under the stage, there's going to be these like portal summoning guardians who are going to summon a load of imps and like hell demons and stuff. It's just all terrible trash. So there's some very easy count in this dungeon, as you'll see. We'll get to it in a little while. But yeah, that stuff under the stage is not worth it. Firstly, behind the stage is bad, but under the stage is bad, and then you have to fight the ushers as well, which are terrible because you've got to like keep turning your back or line of sighting. I can't remember. I've not even done an usher in season 4 yet, and I hope to keep it that way because I remember they were pretty terrible. So we've teleported back to the start of the run, and we've gone left. We ate our food buffs and stuff, as you saw, and now we've jumped down to the morose kind of section of the dungeon, and we're just fighting through these guests. Now these goblin dragon guns that they seem to be firing, they look like frontals, but I think they just follow the tanks, so you don't have to worry too much about them. But I would get into a habit of standing behind mobs if you're playing a melee DPS in Lower Karazhan, because there are an absolute ton of frontals in this dungeon. Like, it's silly. I didn't realize quite how many you could put into one single dungeon, but they were feeling very unimaginative with the trash in Karazhan, it seems like. So watch out for the frontals. I just make a habit of never ever standing in front of any mob in here. Mark your tank for sure, and yeah, just never stand even remotely close to your tank. Now these wardens in this room of morose are very dangerous, probably one of the most dangerous mobs in the entire dungeon, I think. They're going to put 2 debuffs, as you see. I've got one on me now. They're going to put 2 debuffs out. I've actually opted to walk out and netherwalk this one. It does, as you can see, our hunter is gonna pretty much almost die every single time. We're rotating like externals on them and things like iron barks and stuff like that. He's turtling them, he's feign deathing them for damage reduction and things like that. I think he might have even switched to a tank pet as well just to survive these things. He got kind of unlucky with the RNG on them as well. You can blur them, you can netherwalk them. I netherwalked because I walked around the corner in line of sight of my healer. Otherwise I would blur it, so next time I get one I will have blur for it. And yeah, we're just making sure always to focus the wardens. That's those big like Voidwalker ghost looking guys, and then the infiltrators are the second priority. And we're just kicking these servants because that just puts a slow on people, which makes it harder to move out, obviously, if you get the warden debuff. But yeah, the trash in here, not too bad. Nothing else really does much. There are a couple casters which might cast some searing pains and things. But yeah, you just need to move out and use a self cooldown. So like a, you know, if you're not topped, use a health potion. If you're topped, you might as well blur. If you got netherwalk, chuck your netherwalk down. As a last resort, you could maybe do like a personal darkness and try and risk the RNG on that one. But yeah, try and call for like an external if you're doing a higher key. These ones are really going to hurt on tyrannical. So far it's been pretty clean. At this point we're pretty much just winding down the clock on bloodlust. So as you can see, we have about 3 minutes left. We're just going to do a bunch of trash. As I said, this is kind of free percentage. Watch out now on these chefs though. They have a frontal. It took us a couple runs to work it out, but they have like a rolling pin slap where they just hit people in front of them with a rolling pin. I think it's a pretty short range, but yeah, just make sure that you're standing behind the chefs. None of the trash really does much in here. As you've seen, the guests in the Morose room, they do pretty much nothing. So as long as you're nuking down those arcane wardens, you should be good there. And our tank is marked with the blue square, so I'm just making sure that I'm always standing, you know, behind the mobs, always looking where that blue square is. Sometimes he does move slightly erratically, just like that. And I actually took a rolling pin in the face. Thankfully, I didn't die. But yeah, I think he moved to move things out of sanguine. He turned them quite suddenly. And I kind of just got caught a bit. I didn't know he was going to do that. So that could have been a death quite easily if this key was maybe even just 1 key level higher. And then we're just going into this kind of kitchen area. As I said, just winding down the clock. I'm going to chuck my meta here because it's kind of like an AoE cooldown at this point. So I'm just going to throw my meta out as soon as we chain pull this next pack here. So I can get some value, get my trinket on the go, get a little bit of value out of the vicious wounds as well there. And yeah, we're kind of just wanting Bloodlust for Morose. He's not too difficult on Fortified, but he still has a lot of health. You still got to get through all the guests and things, so we just want to have Bloodlust. Just really, like, we could probably have done like a big trash pull with Bloodlust and it would have been fine. But the timer on this dungeon, from what I've seen so far, is pretty okay. I feel like it's, as long as you don't mess it up, the dungeon timer is actually quite lenient. It's quite free. As long as you got some decent AoE DPS, you can really just pull all this kind of like filler trash. Like, as you can see, there's just no mechanics coming out of any of this trash. There's just a bag of health. Just a bunch of target dummies. The only thing we're really looking for is the frontal off the infiltrator here, and always keeping an eye on those sleep clouds to make sure we don't get caught in the sleep clouds or walk through sleep clouds into a frontal, or be sleeping when we're trying to dodge the infiltrator's frontal, things like that. As you can see, like, none of them are really casting anything. The bakers and chefs are just following the tank, and we're just kind of like cleaving them down. So fortunately, we have a big survival hunter doing tons of damage. Outlaw rogue's looking really strong as well, and yeah, it's feeling not great as a DH this season so far, I won't lie. Definitely better picks for classes. It does feel bad like competing with the tank. My gear is still a little bit behind where the rest of my group is, but it's by no means bad. I'm like 289 at this point, I think. I haven't been very lucky with drops in the raid and fated and stuff, but it's definitely not the best. So we are now going on to Morose. We're actually taking 2 at the start and we're calling kicks. So we are CCing 2 of them, focusing on this Lord Robin Darius. The mobs that will be in the rotation on Morose do change weekly. There are 6 possible guests, and you'll always have 4 of them. So you kind of just got to choose which ones you're going to deal with. Some of them do. There's one of them does a blade storm. This guy throws those spinning axes on the ground. This Vondil, we're just doing an interrupt rotation on her. And Morose himself doesn't really do that much. He does like a little thing on the tank, and he teleports to someone and puts a big bleed on them. Now on Tyrannical, that bleed is rough, like really rough. I've heard people talking about race changing to dwarf just to deal with the bleed on Morose, which I think is kind of crazy, but yeah, it's a lot about just interrupting the mobs that need interrupting. There's one with a huge frontal, but he can't be gripped. I think he's called a Crispin Ference or something. So the idea is you want to get the ads down first before you phase Morose. I think it's to 50%. If you get into 50%, he'll kind of like make his guests unCCable. So we're just making sure that we don't get him there first while there's like at least 1 or more guests alive. And now once we pull in the last guest, she doesn't really do much. She just melees the tank a little bit, and she has like an empowered arms interrupt. So we're just rotating interrupts on her while we're actually focusing down Morose. So we're just cleaving her down, and I think she even despawns if we kill Morose. So yeah, just focus on the boss at this point. So on some of the bosses, it does feel like Demon Hunter can kind of hold its own. It's still bad, to be honest, compared to a lot of classes, you know, compared to your warlocks, compared to your mages, compared to your hunters, even now compared to your rogues. It probably isn't It's probably just behind there with maybe like warriors and probably even like ret paladins and things like that. But at least I'm buffing my my D8, my DK, and I'm buffing my hunter's damage and things like that. So now we walk through that room where we previously killed all those bakers and chefs, and now this trash again doesn't really do much. You can see I've got a weak aura to the right. My character's constantly saying dodge. That's for a frontal on the tank. There's a kind of like it's a pretty bad animation, I'm not gonna lie. It's like a triangular, you know, cone frontal on the tank. The guardsmen do it. It's a shield smash. It's quite a bad telegraph, but just remember that it's a frontal, so just be behind all the mobs and look where your tank is. Again, just mark your tank with a big square or a big orange circle or something, just so you can always look at them. This is made a little bit more difficult by the sanguine, because the tank's obviously going to be moving them out of sanguine. If there was no sanguine, he could literally just stand on the spot and walk left and right to dodge the frontals himself, because if he does get hit, then he's going to get stunned and he's probably going to go down, especially on fortified. So again, nothing to really do here as a melee. You're just standing behind and hitting target dummies. And as you'll notice, a common theme in a lot of this Karazhan trash, like all of this upstairs part, these sentries, guardsmen and things, it's all the same stuff. It's just stand behind the mobs and just beat them down. So this is where we really fall behind in like overall damage on the meter, because like rogues and hunters can do way more sustained AoE than I can. If I've got a meta for a big pull, cool, maybe I can hit like 60-70k, you know. But this, you know, in these smaller pulls, I'm literally just relying on my blade dances and my Trail of Ruin to just do some ticking dot damage. If I don't have my Vicious Wounds trinket ready, then I can't do really much. So I'm literally just there. I'm helping smiley face with my immolation aura and my my death sweeps and blade dance and stuff. As you can see, I'm losing to the tank right now. So we really fall behind a bit here compared to the other DPS. Kind of just the shitty time of DH. Is pretty bad era for DH, to be honest. Havoc especially. But yeah, like at least we're getting the key. We're working on it, right? So here I can actually finally pop my trinket, and again, it's just standing behind stuff. I'm making sure I try and get some damage on the infiltrator, just because I don't want to be dealing with that infiltrator frontal while maybe the guardsmen are doing their smashes and things. I'm just going to mess on top of everything. Get some value out of my trinket though, because I do get a couple of the eye beam resets off the Dark Glare Legendary. And yeah, we're just going to be slowly working our way down to the lower room here, doing like a full rotation of this upstairs platform, killing all of this really easy trash. It's tons and tons of percentage. It's very boring. It takes ages. It's kind of like, for me, it feels like the Motherlode if you played Battle for Azeroth, where you're just killing trash for like 20 minutes and then you just do all the bosses and the key's done. Like this lower feels kind of like the Motherlode of now season 4, right? So I'll just speed up this footage. These sentries, I think they shoot the tank, or maybe they just shoot one random range. I think if your range stands in melee DPS, in melee range of them, they can't like ping him with the bows. So again, you just gotta like stand everyone behind the mobs in melee and you're just chilling, killing stuff. It's pretty boring. There's not really much to say, so I will speed it all up until we get downstairs to the horses. So now going downstairs to the horses, surprise, there's some frontals. So we got these new mobs at the bottom of the staircase. I think they're the journeymans, and they are just going to do like an overhead axe slam onto the tank. I believe it's literally just called smash. So again, move, don't be standing on the tank. You can watch the cast bars. I've got a weak aura again that kind of shows those. Making sure we get that infiltrate down, so there's one less like frontal that can actually go on us behind the mobs. And then there's these you can see these orange circles going out onto DPS here, and occasionally our healer. I fortunately didn't get one, but it's just like a little flame ticking dot thing, and then you'll do like an AoE around you when you explode. So what you want to do with that orange circle, if you do get it, is just move away from anyone. Just, you know, you might have to suck it up and take a couple steps away, take your damage off the mobs for a second, but you know, as a demon hunter, you're not doing any damage anyway, so it's kind of fine. In fact, it's probably good if you get it, because your other DPS can instead stay in and do DPS. Now this is where it kind of goes a bit tits up for us for the first time. So far the run's been super clean. The only 5 deaths we have is actually doing that suicide after first boss. Now here we were only supposed to pull 4 charges, 4 of the horses, so we can just each take 1 and interrupt 1. So you know, tank would take one, I would take one, hunter would take one, and rogue would take one. They don't cast often enough that you'll never have your interrupts up, so you can just take, you can quite comfortably take 4, and we just mark one each, and we just say, all right, I'm taking red, or I'm taking blue, right? And other than that, they're just going to be charging at the tank into the wall. So if a tank faces them into the wall here, like he's doing, and has aggro on them all, then they should all just keep charging at the tank. And yeah, that you should never really have any problems. Now, the thing you're interrupting is the Fierce Stomp, I think it's called. And that one is pretty deadly. It's some AoE damage. So if we all take one of those, one should never go off. But yeah, here somehow 2 extra horses got pulled, I think. So I think we're fighting, in fact, it might even be 4. I think we're supposed to be fighting 4. And I think we're fighting 6 or 8 right now. And the tank is, you know, he's a blood DK. He's just chilling down there. He's just going and going and going and going. He can tank stuff pretty much forever. So we do actually run back and actually get a couple of kills before I think he goes down. But yeah, at this point, like, we all died at separate points. So we were all running back and we we're all at different stages of getting back. We got a couple of the kills here, but then Sanguine healed them up and stuff like that. So it was pretty rough. And it was a pretty messy couple of wipes. So I will fast forward all that footage to the next pack, and I'll just tell you about, you know, what was supposed to go down there. So now I see that we're actually just going to take 2 charges by themselves. And again, that was because I think it just got body pulled, or maybe, I don't know if it was a tab target or something like that. I have no idea, to be honest. But now we're just taking these 2 charges in exactly the same way. Each of us is just calling one of the markers which we want to take, and then we're just facing them into the wall, and that's how you deal with them. The tank, I think, just dodges the charges as they come, which puts like a little purple line on the ground, and then they just fire themselves into the wall. So pretty easy. That apparently the charge can't be gripped to stop as well, which kind of sucks. But yeah, we're just taking those 2 by themselves, and then the next pack has got a little bit more going on because we now have the guy that puts the circular orange swirly on us. He's back in the pack as well now. So we've got to be hitting our interrupts while moving out. And then there's also a heal. These are hand mobs, spectral hands. They are going to do like an AoE heal. So you just need to hit that one. It's kind of like the mobs in the mists of Turnersyth in the maze. If they get that heal off, then they'll put like an AoE hot on everyone. So I think it can be Blood Elf silenced off. I'm not 100% sure because I don't think we've ever let it go through actually. So that's nice. And the DK, if you have a DK in your group, you can actually take that mob and it will constantly heal your group as well. So that's quite nice. Nice little touch. And then just make sure when you're on this last pull that you're not kind of like, you watch your ass basically, because you do not want to be pulling the boss. He's not resettable or anything like that. He'll stay on you for the whole room. So yeah, make sure that you're not going to accidentally pull the boss here. There it is, the healing touch. The rogue got the kick on it there. And yeah, just focus on the infiltrator in this pack and deal with the horses the same way you've been dealing with them. Make sure you kick the hand, and other than that, there's not too much. Just move out with that orange circle, and then we'll move on to the midnight boss. So on this boss, I'm actually going to save my Sinful Brand for when he dismounts, because you're just going to be getting the horse midnight to 50%, at which point the actual boss is going to be jumping off and dismounting, and you only have about 30 seconds or so to DPS him. So you want to be maximizing that DPS window as much as you can. So this is actually a Tomb and the Huntsman. So then I was Sinful Brand, I-beam, extend it, and now we're hitting this guy. Now watch out for the horse that's going to be walking around the room. As you can see there, the animation sometimes doesn't show. So always watch the horse and where it's facing. And you're always going to be moving out of that kind of frontal that it does. And the boss himself also has a frontal. As I said, I wasn't kidding when I talked about the amount of frontals that are in Lower Karazhan. It's a bit crazy, to be honest. The boss himself has a frontal, the horse has a frontal, and then the boss also has like a cleave around him. It's called Shared Suffering. Now, quite often in a pug, you might end up you stand in this with your group and it shares the damage, kind of like similar to a lot of raid mechanics which split damage. So if you stand 5 people in it, you'll split the damage between 5. Our tank can pretty much solo it with some blood decay goodness sprinkled in there. So he usually solos every single one, at least on fortified. And then yeah, making sure I fell rush out of the dash there. That was quite close with the I-beam. Yeah, so he usually solos it, but he just calls if he needs help, at which point our rogue can cloak So it just, you know, does a 50% damage reduction and the rogue won't take damage from it. I could go in as well with Netherwalk to help him out for one of them as well. Just take a step back. You see the animation for it is quite a big purple circle around the boss. So if he starts casting that Shed Suffering, then you want to be taking a step away unless you're intending to soak it. So this is one of those ones that you're going to have to talk with your party members beforehand to see if you're going to be sharing the damage or not, or soloing or whatever. And if you're not, then yeah, I'm just taking a step back here so my rogue can go in and help him soak, or the tank can solo, and making sure that I'm not going to get cleaved for all of my health and die for no reason. Now, I think if you get the boss below 20%, he's not going to go back on the horse, so that's what you're aiming for. And then here at the end, the horse is going to enrage and fight you, and it takes 100% increased damage. And as you saw there, you might have missed it, rewind it if you need to see it, but it will do a big mighty stomp every few seconds. But we just pull it to the wall and we're just line of sighting that stomp. So we're going to be pulling that midnight right over to the wall, just DPSing it down. It's like the easy part of the fight, and every time it does a stomp, you just want to walk behind and then walk back out. So just line of sighting, and it avoids all the damage. If you don't line of sight that, you're probably dead, especially on Tyrannical. That thing really hurts. It does like 80% of your health on Fortified if you don't do it, because the horse is enraged, right? And we actually go into this spider quarter, and this is where it kind of goes tits up for us again now, because the tank, there's some like graphics. There's like a tiny, you see that tiny green sludge pool on the ground. That's going to put a massive dot on the tank, and he just insta goes down. So we actually kind of got screwed by the spiders here, and we attempted this pull again, and then he died again, I believe, at which point we were like, all right, we actually only have like a few minutes left now, because we were looking at the clock and we're like, okay, time is kind of ticking now, guys. So we were thinking we'll give it one more go on the spiders, which, because we did this in the 22 and it was kind of fine, but this time it just wasn't going well. Quite a lot of the animations are pretty hard to see. They've got this thing called web spray. Again, another frontal, quite a short range frontal on those web spray spiders onto the tank. So I think what you should do to fight these ones is probably just walk them backwards. Like, you pull them all. It's quite easy count, and you can get straight up to the maiden corridor from the basement through the spiders, or you can take the route, which we'll eventually take in a second, through the human place by Morose and up to the maiden corridor that way. So we're actually giving the spiders another go, but again, the web sprays catch the tank off guard, I think, and he's like checking his death log and stuff, at which point we're like, bro, we've only got like 6 minutes left, so we really need to go. And we end up actually just going through the kind of like human and spectral guest quarter again, next to Moreau's room, to get up the staircase to the maiden corridor. So going this way then, personally I think it's a bit safer. I mean, this is only the first week of Fortified, so the routes aren't exactly set in stone in terms of what group's doing which. We had a little bit of a disagreement over like which way is more worth. Personally, I think that this way deals a little bit less damage. There's not really much mechanics on these mobs here. Like, there's a hound there, there's a servant which you just interrupt. The guests do nothing. They also don't give very much count, so you got to bear that in mind. Like, the hunter's popping off here because you can just AoE, right? But these guests are not really doing much, but they're also not really giving us much percentage. So we're literally just clearing as far as we really can to get to a point where we can shroud comfortably over to the maiden, which is the trash, which is going to give us much more percentage. But yeah, these packs didn't really take long either, so they might only be giving like 0.1% each mob, but they're also, you know, completely zero risk, and they're not really taking very long with good AoE. So kind of just slapping through these. It didn't really take very long. It's about 2 minutes or so. Yeah, and we're just going up here, up the stairs. I'm just going up the stairs, and yeah, just fighting pack by pack. Now, you could probably optimize this a little bit more. I did go for a meta here, thinking, you know, I'll probably have it back up in the boss fight. Probably my last chance to meta before a boss. Again, they don't really do much, so it's kind of wasted damage. Like, it's not like a big flex meta. It's kind of just like, okay, let's just do some damage to speed up the dungeon run a little bit here, right? And then the only mob that you really have to focus on is this valet in this last pack before you go in through the door. Now, you just need one kick on this, and then there's a couple patrols that do walk around this room as well, so just watch out for those. You don't want to ask for any of those. And then we're going to set up for a shroud all the way to the last boss, which is the maiden. So making sure to click off my immolation aura, or this could have been very, very dicey. Walking all the way to the other end of the corridor, and then there's actually 2 infiltrators in the room on the left, so the tank is going to dip into that room, pull the double infiltrators and these last guardsmen. As you can see, we're 5% short, but even if we'd have done the spiders, which was our original route, we would have still done this pull to get the double infiltrators, because that's just extra stats, right? That's about 6% crit on my shrouded buff there, so that's going to be really nice. Just watch out for the 2 frontals, because the infiltrators get pulled at pretty much exactly the same time, and the frontals on a timer. You're going to have 2 sleepy clouds going out, and you're also going to have 2 frontals pretty much back to back, so just watch out for those. If possible, you could stay quite well, you're in melee anyway as a demon hunter, but you want your group to stay quite close to the infiltrators so you can dodge those frontals. But be very careful, because there are guardsmen in this pool which are doing frontals on the tank, so you got to watch the floor for that little kind of cloudy gray looking effect on those guardsmen. And again, more frontals. Honestly, in Lower Karazhan, just assume every single mob has a frontal and you should be okay, because you're going to get caught off guard if you don't. Even ones which aren't telegraphed, they just instantly do damage to things in front of them, so they're not even really counterplay in that sense. Now Healer's just having a little drink, and then we've got about 2.5 minutes to kill this boss now. The final boss, not too difficult of a fight, but she can get pretty dicey on tyrannical, to be honest. Make sure that you're standing correctly, because we are 1 tank and 3 melee DPS. We're standing in a cross pattern, because she does have a kind of chain lightning effect in that holy bolt. I get a sacred ground on me here, and I for some reason took this really weird route, which was a complete mistake. I should have just turned straight around and fell rush behind me to get out of there. So I did end up popping a blur to help out with the dot, because I firstly placed the ground wrong, and secondly I ended up taking a dot from it as well, which is really, really bad. That dot hits very, very hard, and you only really want to be taking that in the repentance cast. So we're now getting ready for the first shield, which comes straight after repentance. As soon as she starts casting the repentance, you want to be walking into the ground, that golden ground on the floor, and purposefully getting the dot, and that is going to deal damage to you, obviously, and break the repentance, as it would a paladin repentance as well. So you want to pre-get that and get back in position, and then as soon as it breaks, you want to be sending some cooldowns on the boss, because there is quite a hefty shield, to be honest. I think it's about 10% of the boss's HP, and you want to be sending some cooldowns to get rid of that shield, and then as soon as the shield is gone, you are now able to interrupt the boss. If that cast goes through, it's going to wipe you. So as soon as you see that shield go down and the boss become interruptible, you want to be hitting your interrupt on it there. But not everybody, because then it won't have any interrupts for the holy bolts. Now the tank and I actually stood a little bit close together there. We kind of broke formation for a second, and he got the holy bolt on him, which then flew to me, and that one shot me. So we luckily had a ton of combat reses stacked up, and yeah, here for the next repentance, we actually just put the anti-magic zone down as well. I think I might have even darknessed as well on top of that. No, I think I darknessed the first one actually. And then it was pretty close on the shield there, but as soon as we got through that second shield with the bloodlust, we knew that we're pretty much good to go. The second sacred ground for me went much better. I actually just fell rushed out in a nice direction, nice and early, placed it away in the corner, and yeah, we finished off the boss there. So about a 2-minute 20-ish or 2-minute 10 kill time on that. The time was really, really close, with only 22 seconds to spare on this plus 23, but we obviously had a few mishaps. We had like pretty much 2 full wipes on the horses. I mean, it was like a staggered wipe. Luckily the tank survived. I think if we'd have had to reset the horse pack, we probably wouldn't have timed this key. So I'm glad that the tanker did actually manage to stay alive through that. And then you know, even though we all ran back like 3 times individually to kill that horse pack, it probably saved the key. And then we went for the spider paw, at which point, when that failed, we probably should have just gone for the humans, or just gone straight for the humans anyway. But yeah, we went back for the spiders twice, so 2 full wipes on those as well. And yeah, 23 deaths overall, so quite forgiving on the timer. If we hadn't made those mistakes, we probably would have had like 3 or 4 minutes left over, to be honest, maybe even 5. So completely doable key, probably doable on a 24, maybe even a 25 as well, with this kind of route and this kind of damage. At least I, you know, almost hit 25k overall, but it is quite an AoE heavy dungeon, competing with the tank almost, because he's almost hitting 20k as well. So I'll put my overall and stuff on the screen for you, so you can see kind of what kind of damage we're putting out, where the damage is coming from with this build and things like that. So break that down, analyze it as you will. But yeah, that's about it for this key. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you learned a thing or two, and I will be coming out with quite a few more commentaries over the next few days. I've got a few keys recorded, going all the way up to plus 27s and stuff. So if you're interested in seeing some higher keys and things like that, then you stay tuned for those videos. And you can also check out the stream, twitch.tv/JustRuss, where I do keys on stream, as well as playing other classes and things like that, and just generally shooting the shit, chatting with the boys in chat. And I hope to see some of you over there. So thank you very much for watching. Feel free to check out some of my other videos. And yeah, make sure to like and subscribe because you obviously love the videos. All right, have a great day. And as always, peace.